What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Welcome back to the Respawn series where I answer your questions. Today we're talking nerfs, buffs, and a new ability based on luck. First question of the day, why do I see higher tier players shooting the Zarya bubble? It really all depends on whether or not you're attacking by yourself or if you have your teammates helping you. So if you're going one-on-one versus a Zarya, just wait those 2 seconds, don't give her the extra damage. But oftentimes in the upper bracket, the higher skill players, they're going to have multiple people focusing on the same target at once, in which case you can just destroy the bubble really quick and then you focus down and kill the Zarya. So you have a lot of extra damage focused on that single target, so the bubble, the extra damage she gets from it, doesn't really do anything because she's just gone before she can use it. How would a smokescreen-like ability work in Overwatch? This is the single most overused, and at this point, cliche ability in pretty much all the hero concepts. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said I will never add a smoke ability to any of my hero concepts, just because it's overused. If you go and look at other people who make hero concepts, like every other one of them has some sort of smoke ability, either as a regular ability or as the ultimate or something. Generally, how they all work is you throw it on the ground, your team can see through it, but the enemy can't. That's pretty much how it would work. I think it's okay. Not really particularly fond of it. I mean, it might work, but I don't know. I think at this point it's just so overused, like I wouldn't even want it in the game. Would an ultimate granting infinite ammo globally for a set amount of time be balanced? It would be pretty bad. Like, there's very little use you could have because, for example, characters like Orisa and Bastion, they're not gonna reload. They don't need to reload that often. Characters like Brigitte and Reinhardt don't need to reload that often. And, you know, other characters like Widowmaker and Hanzo, like, there's just very, very limited in its use. I don't think it's really a question of it being balanced. I think it's more of a question of, is it even worth having? And I think the answer is no. Between tank, support, and damage, which hero type is the hardest to make and why? Okay, so the easiest is by far damage characters, because there's so much stuff you can do. But for the healers and the tanks, those are actually quite difficult. I would say they're about the same difficulty, but it's different. For example, with the healers, I have a really tough time coming up with new ways to heal your teammates that hasn't already been done. And same thing with the ultimates. Finding new ways to kind of just heal your team is really difficult. As for the tanks, and we're talking tanks here, like Reinhardt Orisa tanks, not bruisers like Roadhog and all that other nonsense. So I'm talking about tanks that can actually prevent damage on your teammates. That's also really difficult because, again, how do you make other barriers that haven't been done already? Like, I found a couple of different ways to change it up a little. I tried the lifelink thing with Brute, which I think is a really good alternative. There's some other things as well that I have, but the healers and the tanks are both very, very difficult to come up with, or at least come up with stuff that's interesting and stuff that would work. And I think they're probably equal in difficulty. It's just there's different stuff. Should they add another flying hero like Pharah? That is another really difficult thing because flying is an incredibly strong thing that a character can have. So right now we have the Pharah who just kind of like hovers a little bit, but your mobility is really bad and you have to spend a lot of time kind of managing the thrusters and stuff. So we already have that in the game. Giving a character just pure flight like Mercy has during her ultimate would be ridiculously powerful. Like, it would be so difficult to balance something like that unless it's restricted to like the ultimate. For example, with Mercy, she can use it because her damage is really low and it's her ultimate, so it's a limited time thing. But if you had a character that could just fly all the time like that, it would be really difficult. There are some alternatives to the flying stuff, and I do have a couple of characters that do work. It's kind of flying, kind of not flying. You'll have to wait and see, but there are some ways to get it to work. It's just tough. Do you think Winston needs a buff with his Tesla cannon damage? No, definitely not. What are your thoughts on a support ultimate that gives one of your teammates 100% ult charge? That is way, way too powerful. Imagine having Zarya with 2 Gravs or Zenyatta with 2 Transcendences. It's just too strong. Like, it would be an absolute must pick in all the upper bracket games all the time. It's just way too strong. Anything that gives your teammates ult charge would be a must pick. Could a character that controlled luck work in the game like Black Cat? Usually when people refer to luck, they're talking about percentage-based RNG, and that would be absolutely terrible. That would probably be the single worst thing that you could ever add to the game. RNG, randomness type stuff is just really terrible in any FPS game, any competitive game at all. You want to get rid of all of that randomness. You want it to be based on player skill alone. So if you have an ability that would just randomly shut down an opponent's weapon, or it would randomly cause you to do extra damage or to avoid damage, no, that would be absolutely terrible. You do not ever want to add that. When I made my Mikhail hero concept, the phasing character with the displacement passive, I specifically avoided any kind of randomness. Rather than giving him an X% chance to avoid an attack, I simply made it so that he avoided 1 every 10 seconds, and that was it. It was a flat thing, you knew it was going to happen, and you could kind of work around it and counter it. But no, randomness, luck, any of that sort of stuff, super, super bad. You never, ever want to add that into the game. In a recent video, you mentioned that you lose more, gain less SR if you switch characters a lot. Is it true? Yes, it is. Explain a bit. Sure. So it used to affect all players. It's based on the performance-based SR bonus. And what happens is, if you play really well, then you get extra SR when you win, or you lose a little bit less if you end up losing the match. And the reverse is true as well. If you play really badly and you win, you don't get that much. And if you play really badly and you lose, then you lose a lot more. The thing is, when you switch quite frequently, you have more downtime, you have less ultimate usage, and just the way that it compares your stats basically punishes you for switching. So what they did was they made it so that the players who are 3,000 and above no longer get that penalty. And the reason for that is because the upper bracket players are significantly more likely to switch characters a lot during a match. If they need to switch, they recognize when the situation is going bad, and they're going to switch off a lot. So by removing that little change, it made it so that the upper bracket, the Master GM, and even the Diamond players can switch frequently, and they don't have to worry about being punished. For the lower bracket players, it's not so much of an issue because they don't switch characters nearly as much. Maybe because they just don't realize that they should be switching. Maybe they don't realize that what they're doing quite isn't effective. Or possibly they could just be stubborn. But in either case, the thing is, the upper bracket players switch a lot more often because they need to. The lower bracket don't. So Blizzard just made it so that you still get that switching penalty if you're in the lower bracket. Why does my endorsement level keep going down and up? Because there's a decay on it. Whenever you play a match, if you don't get endorsed, then there's a little bit of a decay on your rating. And when you hit rank 4, it is really difficult to maintain that. Rank 5 is almost impossible to maintain, but you have to constantly get new endorsements every single match, otherwise you're going to end up losing it. Why isn't Torb played in the higher brackets? Because even though he's better with the rework, he still isn't that good. The problem is, well, one, we have the GOATS comp, which is just dominating absolutely everything. But even if you get rid of that, Torbjorn is still problematic. He needs more changes, more rebalancing to make him more viable in the upper bracket without just making him way too strong in the lower bracket. Do you think they should remove the skybox? I think you're referring to the ceiling, the invisible barrier that is up on the top. No, that needs to stay there. If they got rid of it, then you could have a pharah that just went way, 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 way up high, and it would be almost impossible to do anything about the pharah. And all of the pharah's rockets would still do maximum damage, but all of the hit scan that's trying to hit her would do like 3 damage to her because of the fall-off damage. So no, you have to keep it. But they really should be making the ceiling a little bit higher, particularly on the Paris map, because it's just really low on the Paris map. Do we need more damage heroes than healers and tanks? They said they're... So here's the problem. We need more tanks and we need more healers, but those are the characters that make GOATS comp stronger. So we need more DPS, but we need DPS that can actually counter GOATS comp. Or what I think is they should be rebalancing some of the existing DPS so that they're better at dealing with triple, the GOATS comp type situation. Adding more anti-heal stuff. Like, they don't need to give characters entirely new abilities. They could just add on, like, some sort of anti-heal effect to existing characters' existing abilities. Why isn't Ana played against GOATs even though she has anti-heals? She is played against GOATs. She's one of the options. So you can either run a Moira, which doesn't happen that much anymore, or you can run a Zenyatta, or you can run an Ana. Ana is run quite often, and the problem with the anti-heal is that the barrier from the enemy Reinhardt or the enemy Winston just blocks it. So there needs to be more anti-heal stuff in the game that isn't just going to be blocked by barriers. Or even if it is blocked by barriers, the problem with the anti that Ana has is the cooldown is really, really long. So there needs to be other options that don't have as ridiculously a long cooldown and can be a little bit more effective. That's going to be all the questions for this week. Thank you to everyone who's submitted one. If you didn't get picked, make sure you try again next time. Also, if you're new to the Respawn series, try checking out all of the older videos. Maybe your question has already been asked and answered. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.